This is an artist's conception of what the alien equivalent of a Dyson Swarm might look like. A Dyson Sphere is a hypothetical megastructure built by an advanced alien species around their star to collect 100% of its energy output. This particular idea was first proposed by Robert Lanza in 2003. His idea consisted of a gigantic swarm of independent collection satellites that would orbit very close to the star and gather its energy before beaming it down to the planets in the system for use. But this may not be the only type of Dyson structure out there, or even the first one. A Dyson Swarm is a variation on the Dyson Sphere concept, but instead of a single giant artificial object, it consists of millions or billions of small ones. Each individual unit could be relatively primitive, but the overall structure is so massive that it has a significant effect on the star it has built around, altering its light signature and heat output. And while a full-on Dyson Sphere is incredibly unlikely, scientists think that a Dyson Swarm may be a little more plausible. So, with all that in mind, let us talk about the most promising candidates for alien Dyson Swarms and why scientists are hesitantly excited about them. First, let's quickly explain the problem with Dyson Spheres. It is not because we haven't thought of them before, or that they are impossible, or that aliens aren't real. It's because they take an incredible amount of resources to build. In fact, they take more resources than would likely be available even to the most advanced civilization over its entire lifespan, unless that civilization had access to basically unlimited energy. That's just good old-fashioned resource management 101. You can't spend more resources than you have. But you can make your limited resources go further if you do and need to enclose an entire star in order to harvest it, and that's where Dyson Swarms come in. Dyson Swarms can be built in layers, starting small and growing over time as the civilization advances and acquires more resources. Early versions of the swarm might be used to mine the star's energy for use at a planetary base. And later iterations could include collectors orbiting the star, funneling its energy to wherever it's needed. It also means that if one part of the swarm fails or gets damaged, the rest of the swarm can keep functioning. So there's a lot of appeal to these structures, especially when compared to the more traditional Dyson Sphere. A typical Dyson Sphere would be completely opaque, perfectly smooth, and very shiny. The material would have to be extremely strong and durable to withstand the intense heat and pressure from the star. All those factors combined mean that it would be extremely efficient at collecting the star's energy, but it also makes the structure incredibly difficult to build. In contrast, a Dyson Swarm doesn't have the same limitations. Its various parts can be much smaller and individually simpler, requiring far fewer resources to create. And because the parts are separated, they don't have to be made from the same stuff. For example, some of the swarm's components could be solid while others are more like nets or funnels. Some could focus on collecting energy while others focus on directing it where it's needed. So for all these reasons, Dyson Swarms are considered to be a bit more practical than regular Dyson Spheres. If you want to detect a Dyson Swarm, you'd first have to notice something weird going on with the star it's built around. Stars produce energy through nuclear fusion, smashing hydrogen atoms together to make helium and releasing huge amounts of energy in the process. That energy radiates outward in all directions, allowing the planets orbiting the star to feel its warmth and light. If an alien species were to start harvesting that energy, it would noticeably change the amount of light coming from the star, which we might be able to detect here on Earth. If the alien species is advanced enough to build a Dyson Swarm, then they're probably doing it to harvest the star's energy for their own use. And a Dyson Swarm is highly efficient at that. If an alien civilization is dumb enough to waste half of their star's energy, then they're probably not advanced enough to have been noticed anyway. And it wouldn't necessarily be easy for us to detect. So the only stars we'd be likely to observe would be the ones whose energy was being fully harnessed. But just how exactly would we detect that? Well, a star's brightness can vary naturally due to things like sunspots, flares, and stellar winds. So it's not always easy to tell when it's been altered by something artificial. However, as the swarm collects more and more of the star's energy, its light signature becomes increasingly distorted. Scientists can model what a star's light should look like under various conditions, allowing them to spot anomalies that might indicate something strange is going on. For instance, one way a Dyson Swarm might affect a star's light signature is by creating regular fluctuations in brightness. As different parts of the swarm come in and out of view, depending on where on its orbit they happen to be, they would periodically block some of the light coming from the star. So the brightness would subtly change as each part of the swarm took its turn in the spotlight. These periodic changes in brightness could help astronomers spot potential Dyson swarms, though they would need to be carefully analyzed to distinguish them from other phenomena. Another method for spotting Dyson swarms involves looking for unusual dips in a star's light signature. Stars emit most of their light in the visible spectrum, but they also emit a large amount of infrared radiation. When the star's light passes through a swarm, however, some of the infrared radiation could get trapped between the swarm's components, resulting in a noticeable dip in the star's overall light. If the infrared signal gets blocked, it could reveal the presence of a swarm. Finally, there are variations on these methods that can also work. Astronomers can also look for changes in a star's color. A healthy star will emit mostly white light with a bit of yellow and red thrown in. However, if the star is being partially obscured by a swarm, its color might shift slightly towards the red end of the spectrum. This happens due to a phenomenon known as redshift, which occurs when light waves are stretched, shifting the light towards the red end of the spectrum. So any shift in a star's color could hint at the presence of a Dyson swarm. So with all those methods in mind, let's take a look at some of the stars that scientists think could potentially host Dyson swarms. First, there's Tau Boats, a star about 5 times larger than our Sun and around 12 light-years away. What makes Tau Boats interesting is that it seems to have a surprisingly low amount of infrared radiation given its size. It could be that it's just cooler than expected, or it could be that something is blocking some of its infrared light. Researchers believe that the second explanation might be correct, but more observations are needed to confirm. Another candidate is the star 18,204,101, located about 145 light-years from Earth. This star is about twice the size of our Sun, and astronomers have noticed some unusual dips in its brightness. These dips could be explained by the star's brightness fluctuating naturally, but they could also be caused by the star being partially covered by a Dyson swarm. Unfortunately, this star is so far away that it's extremely difficult to study, making it hard to collect the evidence needed to confirm or deny the presence of a Dyson swarm. And finally, there's Kepler 70b, a star that is more than twice the size of our Sun and around 5,000 light-years away. This star was actually the first candidate for a Dyson swarm. It was spotted by NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, which found that the star's brightness fluctuated regularly, suggesting that something was orbiting it. Further analysis revealed that the star's brightness dipped slightly in the infrared spectrum, providing additional evidence for a possible Dyson swarm. It would obviously be huge news if we were to find confirmed evidence of a Dyson swarm. The discovery would provide clear evidence that there is at least one other civilization out there that is capable of building such a structure. It would also raise a lot of questions about the civilization that built the swarm. Like, how advanced is it? How long has it been around? What other technologies has it developed? We still might not know the answers to those questions, but it would be great to find out. And the good news is that scientists are actively searching for signs of Dyson swarms. While no conclusive evidence has been found yet, the search continues. With more powerful telescopes and other advanced technologies, astronomers are constantly scanning the skies for any anomalies that might indicate the presence of a Dyson swarm. Who knows? Maybe one day soon we lines find one and we lines finally know that we're not alone in the universe. As usual, thanks so much for watching, and thanks to our supporters for helping to make this video.